Welcome back. In this lecture, I'm going to demonstrate briefly how to go ahead and install Ubuntu.iso image that you've downloaded. It's about a 2 GB download, right? And you've saved it on your computer somewhere. Next step is to open up the Oracle VM VirtualBox Manager that you've already downloaded, and then simply click on New to create a new virtual machine, because we are going to be dual booting with our Windows, and of course I also have Kali Linux installed. So I'm going to call this and give it a name. I'm going to call it Ubuntu. Type is Linux, and by default it's 64-bit. A couple of ways I can do it: export mode or next. I'm going to walk you through, so I'm going to click on next. The recommended memory by default is 4 megabytes. You can increase it if you like. Click next. Here you can either create a virtual disk. You can use the existing virtual hard drive, for example. So currently I have this Kali Linux VDI or a new virtual disk, or you can create a new one, which I'm going to go ahead and do. Click on create. And this is going to be a VirtualBox disk image. Click next. The storage on the physical drive is going to be dynamically allocated. You can also provide a fixed size if you like. In other words, you have to specify to install Ubuntu on a 40 gig space or 35 gigabytes and so on. So it depends on your own requirement. So we're going to leave it as dynamically allocated. Click next. I'm going to give it a name. By default, it's about 10 gigabytes. Of course, you can change it. You can say 40 or 30 or whatever it is that you'd like to use. And this is the choose the location for the new virtual hard disk, right? So that's important. So in this instance, I'm going to go ahead and choose the location, which is either the K drive or the F drive or C or D, whatever it is that you want to create this Ubuntu.vdi. Similarly, I have this Kali Linux created. So I'm going to choose K drive, right? So I want to make sure that I install it on my K partition here. So I'm going to click save. And then I'm going to specify 40 gigs as a space for this particular virtual hard disk. I'm going to go ahead and click create. So it's going to go ahead and actually create the virtual image on the VirtualBox Manager within the VirtualBox Manager. And notice it gives me some details, the general details I can take a look at: the system, display, controller, and so on. So the next step is, of course, right click on this particular Ubuntu machine, and then I'm going to go ahead and see if I can start it up. Click on normal start. I'm just going to go ahead and start this. And it's going to go ahead and create the process for the virtual machine, and this is going to take some time depending on the speed of your own computer. So next I want to go ahead and select the startup disk here. So the host drive is the F drive. Of course, I can choose other drives as per my own requirement. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and click on start. I'm just going to start the process. And notice the first screen that comes up, it starts to unpack all of these files, and the process would continue for a while, and it's going to give you several options to configure as we move along. So here we are. We're on the welcome screen of installing Ubuntu. Of course, select the language from the left navigation pane, and then click on Install Ubuntu. So once I click on it, it's going to walk me through a series of steps, and all I have to do is just follow it, and eventually it's going to install Ubuntu on this virtual machine. And once I'm done, of course, I can save it, because I'll have an instance here somewhere, right? Just like I have Kali Linux. And next time, if I need to run Ubuntu, I could simply go ahead and start the VM. So the language is English. Click continue. I can choose a normal installation, minimal. Of course, option is good to have, where it's going to download updates while installing Ubuntu. So I have the latest updates. Click continue. So once you're at this screen, notice it gives you several options, right? I can either erase the disk and install Ubuntu, which is by default, even though it provides you the warning, but this is only for the virtual machine itself. So I'm going to go ahead and simply click install now. It's going to give me the option or a dialog box to write the changes to the disks. So I'm going to go ahead, and it just simply says that if you continue the changes listed below, will be written to the disks, which is, again, it's going to create the partition tables, and then the following partitions are going to be formatted accordingly. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue. So I'm going to go ahead and select the Eastern Zone, which is New York. Click continue. Next step is just fill out some basic information. So it just asks for your name, your computer name, and then of course the username and password that you need to fill out. So I'm just going to give it a password here, and you need to make sure that your password stays strong, right? So I'm going to also choose require my password to log in. This gives me some additional security. So click continue, and it's going to go ahead and start to copy the files. So after the initial installation files are complete, it's going to go ahead and retrieve some of the updates or regarding files of help and support. Alright, great. So once the installation is complete, all I have to do is just reboot the computer and then restart the VM, and I should have my Ubuntu. So I'm going to assign this as homework. Go ahead. You have successful installation of Ubuntu on the VirtualBox. Hope this helps. Practice. Let's move to the next lesson.